Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, episode 760.
From the great outskirts of Cleveland to wherever you may roam, Sean and Jim thank you for listening to the Raging Bullets podcast show.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of you know, the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Gooder, and is proud to announce his first how-to book, Stalking in You, an Ethical Guide, releasing soon at Barnes & Noble and Amazon, with audio narration soon to follow. And, of course, he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
That will make a lot more sense when you hear our discussion about Apama's issue 10 and 11, which we're going to be starting. We're going to be talking about Tap Dance Killer, actually. But the origin issues are from Apama, the Undiscovered Animal, issues number 10 and 11, which is what we're starting on today. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
You know what I love? 50% off. We have Mr. Terrific, Year 1, Issue 1 of 6, 50% off, $1.99. Supergirl, new ongoing series, Issue 1, 50% off, $1.99. Superman Unlimited, new ongoing series, Issue number 1, 50% off, $2.49. Thank you, DCBS.
I'm really looking forward to Superman Unlimited.
Yes, me too.
I mean, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to, but that's one of those standout books that I'm really looking forward to. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their deals of the week. DC's finest, Plastic Man, The Origin of Plastic Man, trade paperback. This is the Jack Cole stuff. $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. Fantastic Four Epic Collection, trade paperback, volume 11, For No More. This is $49.99 regularly, 46% off, only $26.99. Gunsmith Cat's Omnibus graphic novel, volume 1, $29.99 regularly, 46% off, only $16.99. Superman Space Age trade paperback, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. And the Spectacular Spider-Man trade paperback, volume 2, Elementary, $15.99 regularly, 46% off, only $8.63. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotlines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
In our show notes, we have a link to HeroTomorrowComics.com where you can jump right on the Tap Dance Killer trade paperback collection that is available in PDF form on their site. It contains Apama issue 10 and 11. It also contains Tap Dance Killer issues 1 through 5, which we're going to be doing over the next couple episodes. So if you had a chance to read these, jump over to their site. That's an easy way to grab it. There's also great ways to get them in hardcover and just various collections. But that's the way, if you want to digitally catch up with us right now, you can do it right from their website. So want to point everyone to that. And without further ado, let's talk some comics. All right, the first part of our discussion on Tap Dance Killer is actually going to start in Apama issues 10 and 11. Ted Sikora on story, colors, letters. Milo Miller on story. Benito Gallego on art. And apologies for any name butchery on this one. It's been a little bit since I jumped back to Apama. Just because of the many spin-off series that have come out of this great book. This Apama, our first experience on Apama was on and I'll put it in our show notes, we had some previous episodes with Ted Sikora. One of them was on Hero Tomorrow, which was a film about, really in many ways, about the artist who created this comic book. And years later, they've actually created the comic book. And it's been so cool to see kind of this mixture of medium flesh itself out. But this, and we're going to talk about it as we get more into Tap Dance Killer's solo book, this has a very rich history for Ted. And some of this we also talked about in previous interviews with Ted, where Tap Dance Killer actually came from a song, and there was much more history to it, and we'll have to shed some more light on that. But it's focusing just right now on Apama issues 10 and 11. Jim, what was it like for you delving back into the Apama world and delving back into these issues and the introduction to Tap Dance Killer?
Dude, I'll tell you, this was such a joy. This was absolutely just one of those wonderful things. And it's funny that we're doing this after finishing up Secret Wars, which was, again, was such a nostalgia piece for both of us.
Yeah.
This had that same kind of feel. But the funny thing, it's not going back to my childhood, going back to the earlier days of this podcast,
Yeah.
And I still remember watching Hero Tomorrow, sort of reading the Apama stuff, having Ted on the show. And I was just, all this stuff was flooding back to me going, oh, yeah. And, one of the other neat things that, we gushed about, and I'm still always gushing about, is how this is Cleveland based. So for all you listening, Apama Universe takes place in Cleveland. So all the times the New York people get their cheers and pop, when they're reading Spidey and they see someplace, hey, I've been there. I have that same kind of nostalgia. I have those moments. They're throwing out street names, and I'm like, I know where that is. I know where that is. I know that, So for me, it's always been just again, just a joy on that side of it. Because, this is my home. This is seeing this, but also the groove of the book, fits Cleveland. This isn't just a story, that I recognize things. I recognize people. I recognize, just the stylings of them. And I think that for me was something that I absolutely loved, and just, again, on top of that, it's a really cool story. I love the crafting of Apama, the hero, of Ilian, the person, and just the luck and unluck this guy has. He goes in highs and lows, man. I'm just like, oh, come on. Oh, he's going to make it. No, he's not. Oh, that roller coaster of emotion that he goes through, that, he's just that the unlucky, lucky hero kind of thing that he deals with, where sometimes he just gets by, sometimes he makes a mistake and he somehow ends up on top. And he's just that great emotional hero for me.
HeroTomorrowComics.com is the website where you can get, if you don't already have this, Tap Dance Killer. What we're going to be reviewing over these next couple episodes is going to be Tap Dance Killer Volume 1. It actually has, the digital PDF has Apama 10 and 11, and the first 5 issues, the Tap Dance Killer series that's in there. So it's a $15.99 PDF if you want to go the PDF route. But there's lots of different ways that you can get Tap Dance Killer. But I just wanted to give people a reference point. If you haven't read this before, it's very easy to jump on board. It's HeroTomorrowComics.com. And the link's in the show notes. So that way you can join us on this. We had Ted on more than once to talk about Kickstarters revolving around all of this, and actually to talk about the Hero Tomorrow movie. And we have never done a cover-to-cover. And I thought it was fun to take an indie book and be able to do a cover-to-cover that has such a history with us. This one, it was interesting to me because while it's going back to show history, I also feel like the writing style and what they're doing here is a modern classic. And what I mean is the story is very dense. There's a lot of narrative in it, and I love that. It feels like what I grew up with in my childhood. There's a lot of story packed into each issue, which I think is really critical when you're doing an indie book because of the fact that you want to give somebody out of the first issue that they're reading an idea of the rules of the world, who everybody is, make them feel like they're much more involved because these aren't known characters. These are new characters. Everything's being established and fleshed out, not just your hero, but your villains, and you've got to care about what's going on around you. The nice part about the story of Ilya is it's almost like you took Spider-Man and said, Marvel didn't beat him up enough. Let's beat him up further. We've all had down points in our life, where like we just haven't been able to get it together. Maybe we didn't know who we are. You're trying to figure out, what our path is from A to B. It's not an easy process. It took me a long time to get where I'm at now and, really comfortable with what makes me tick, who I want to be. And I think that's something we all can relate to, whether it was a long or short stretch of your life that you had that. And that's where Ilya's at. Ilya has not figured out his day to day. So then all of a sudden he's gifted with powers. And I think we've all been in those stages. It's like you're looking for if I just won the lottery, if you're, make believe and that type of thing, if I was just a superhero, just how that would fix everything. In Ilya's case, it does not.
It makes it worse.
And that's one of the things that I love. It's the complication of, we talk about often on the show when we're looking at DC heroes and we're looking at Marvel heroes, just how the life of a superhero, the double life, is something that is a drag on you. Well, imagine if you don't have it together in your day-to-day life, what that looks like. Spider-Man, that was one of the things I always thought was cool about Spider-Man, is how relatable he was, because of the fact that he had real-world problems that he was dealing with. Ilya does too, in the sense that Ilya's at that stage in his life where he hasn't gotten anything together. And this just it's like almost another excuse to not get his life together in certain cases. But yet, the tricky balance here is what they've done. I think we've either all been Ilya at some points in time in our life, or we know Ilya. And I think that is or a hybrid of that. And they've managed to make a very human character that is still likable. Because that's a tough piece. It's one of those things where you can take Ilya very, very low, but if you make him unlikable, it's hard to get into following the book. I like Ilya. I want to life coach Ilya, but I like Ilya, and that's the key. Is you like him enough that you want to help him. You want to see him succeed. He makes mistakes along the way, and they don't make you hate him, because he's actually a good guy, even though his lack of motivation tends to be one of those things where you want to smack him upside the head. And I think that's one of the things that I find so charming about the book, is Ilya feels real. Like he's grounded. He exists. And I feel like a lot of what we're dealing with when we read Apama is in real time. It is a book where you're hanging out with Ilya or hearing stories about what's been going on with Ilya. And there's this period of time where, I don't know, Ilya just vanished. What was he doing? That is when he's Apama. And I actually really like that I get the rules of his world, and it does. You mentioned it taking place in Cleveland and how that grounds it so much for you. I think whether you're in I think obviously the Cleveland landmarks and all that make me geek out as well. But I think beyond that, where it's relatable to everybody, is the fact that Ilya is such a fully realized person. And that's something that I really enjoy.
And one of the other things, just tying back to something you just said about how sometimes you just want to smack Ilya in the head and say, dude, what the hell? Uh-huh. Going back to the movie Hero Tomorrow, the guy who was the creator of this, because it was the Hero Tomorrow was about his kind of life story. And he was, coming up with the idea of Apama that would turn into this comic book. There are so many times in that movie when you wanted to smack the guy in the head and say, dude, what the heck? Come on. That I love that how, in a way, that characterization is brought into the character of Apama. So it's kind of like it's kind of like the guy from the movie realized that he was a screw up, and this is him saying, hey, I was a screw up, but I figured it out. I've got Apama going now.
Yeah.
And it's, I always get pulled back into the movie Hero Tomorrow when I'm reading this book, just because they do obvious ties in and connections and whatnot. So I was like, it's kind of neat.
Well, it's like breaking down whatever wall. I was going to say the fourth wall. I don't know. I think they've created like 7 or 8 different walls that never existed before with what they've done here. I think one of the things that's the worst with any story is ambivalence, right? Where you just don't care. It's the opposite with this. I find that quickly I care. It's not just about Ilya. In this case, we're being introduced to Nikki. I care about her very, very quickly.
Oh, God, yeah.
Then wait, talking about screwing with somebody. Oh. And that's one of the things that I love about this. Sometimes things happen in this world that they're tragic, and they don't like magically undo them. And that's one of the things that I think works for this is in the world of Apama and Tap Dance Killer and everything that has spun out of all this, there are consequences that matter. these things that happen aren't just brushed away in a single issue. They have long-standing consequences, and the consequences are actually why you want to follow it. You want to see where is this going to go? What's going to happen because of this? There's nothing that they do to them that like is magic wand unfinished. And that's something that it feels very grounded in a different way. I love that they're taking everything that I love about classic superhero comics and saying, how can we tell you something different with this? How can we take all of the things that we love? Because clearly, these books are such a love letter to so much. Not just comics, but pop culture and media and music and everything in general. That I feel like they're merging all of this together, and stage theater and all those type of things, and merging all this together and making it into something that is just telling us something different. I think it's very accessible because of the fact that everything is relatable, and that's something that I think is hard to pull off and yet make it feel tight and planned and all those pieces. They put a lot of care into these books. It's something that is just really apparent with each issue of it. It's one of the reasons why I've been very proud as a show that we've promoted the Kickstarters. You know, we're one of many sources that are out there promoting this work. And if you haven't gone to a convention yet and run into Ted Sikora's table, he's always got a big table set up with Hero Tomorrow comics. You can't miss the banners. They're gorgeous. It's a collection of cover art and things like that from, the various books that are out there. But he is one of the nicest guys on the planet and loves to talk comics, loves to talk in general. He's having the time of his life, and it's what, at least that's my impression when you go to his table. I know for any of the comic creators that are out there with their own tables and things, those are long days. Every comic convention has its peaks and troughs, right? We've been in there before where the floor's dead because it's just that time of the day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a storm. I really appreciate when I see creators who are out there and their enthusiasm for what they've put together carries them through. Ted is that kind of creator. So I encourage you, if you're listening to this and you find yourself liking these books as we talk through them, go see him at one of these conventions and say hello. Just one of the nicest guys on the planet. He always has prints, and I've got multiple prints that have been signed, and I've got them framed in my basement, just because I really love the artwork in all of this. And he always has some of the alternative covers and unique prints to conventions that are available at his table. So if you find yourself falling in love with this universe or any of the spin-off stories that come out of this universe, do yourself a favor and stop over there, because you're going to find things that you can only get at conventions. I'm a huge fan of that. I geek out at convention swag and convention collectibles and things where you can only get there, that when you refer to it later, I picked this up at this con. And it was exclusive to here, and it's memories of that con. It's kind of a nice little landmark.
Well, actually, lead into it. You're saying about covers and variants and whatnot. Issue 10, the variant cover, I absolutely love this cover.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, this right here is one of those things where, because it's got a cool main cover, but then, you flip the page and you see the variant cover, and you're just like, oh, that is awesome. It's got Nikki right there on the cover. Come on, give it a shot. What's the worst that'll happen? I'm like, oh, that is awesome. Especially knowing what happens in the story, how bad it gets.
This issue 10 came at the right time in Apama, too, because we needed that new thing, the next new thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really like that they do when you flip the page and, it's, hey, Ice Cream Man, she's reaching out to him. I like that they do these little narratives that just give you a little bit of who Nikki St. Clair is. What is her background? What is going to be her link? They even give you a little teaser of what her link to Ilya is. I really think that is just clever. Narrative balloons and the use of, I like it's a scroll in the way that it's going, but narratives like this or something, that's where I'm saying we're bringing in the best of old school storytelling. And I feel like for this world, it so works. But I don't want to make it seem like this is just a complete throwback, because they're clearly doing their own thing with storytelling here. They're clearly fans of classic comics, while at the same time bringing into play something that just feels like a little bit different. But when he pulls up in his ice cream truck, you see this guy who's trying to maintain a job at this stage to just keep, his money going forward. And he is the perfect person to okay, pretty girl's walking up to his ice cream truck. She's, clearly finding him intriguing on some level. It's a horrible ice cream truck, but even the sound system's a mess. Yeah. It's like she's sitting there why are you butchering this music? And, he's basically saying that, I know I want to get this fixed, which is a sign of where Ilya's at, right? This isn't just this isn't like a top tier ice cream truck. This is twist ties and sticky tack holding this whole thing together. Yeah. And I love that feel for Ilya because it says a lot environment-wise about where he's at, trying to get it together in the Cleveland. And here's the thing, you and I have seen ice cream trucks like this going down the street.
Yes, and we've heard it. So
yes.
It's the, that distortion of the music that you're like, what the heck? But I love the comment he makes. He's like, I can completely disconnect the speakers, but then I don't sell anything, which is true.
Right.
If he's going down the street and he's not playing some type of music, people are going to think he's not up and running. He's got to have that going just to get people to come out of their house or come out of the shops or whatnot, wherever he's rolling down the street. So it was completely agree. This is wonderful opening sequence. Great banter, great little chemistry that's going on between them. And again, little personal geek out. She's having signs for an open audition at the Near West Theater, which, by the way, is a real theater, which does actually do these open audition type of stuff. They sometimes will bring in, traveling shows, but they do a lot of community stuff where just everyday Joes off the street can be part of the ensemble and whatnot. So seeing this, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And again, this is kind of a theater that would do something like this show, that would do this Nothing Like Vaudeville show. And again, I was just like, I've been to that theater. I saw Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat there. So that's cool.
One of the things I do want to shout out about just the Cleveland area in general, our theater district and our theater opportunities that are available in Cleveland. If you've never been to Cleveland, it's one of the highlights. It's often a hidden gem that I think people who come here don't realize that. We're not as big as New York, as far as that goes, but boy, we have some gorgeous, gorgeous theaters and some classic theaters that are in various areas that have been turned into community theaters and things like that. It's not uncommon to see something. So it's Nothing Like Vaudeville. This is stuff that really happens here. And to your point of what you're saying, I actually love that whole theme. But I love that this is, to a certain extent, a commercial for Cleveland. And I always felt that with the Marvel books. I always wanted to go to New York, maybe thinking as a kid, just because you felt like every Marvel hero was swinging around over there, especially Spidey. And I love that they've embraced that feeling with this. And I think it's added, because of the fact that it's not New York, it's added a rich and fresh environment to this series, because we've already got that. Marvel's killing it. With that end of it, you need that kind of, this is how you craft a universe around a different area. Keep it interesting, because the distinct differences between Cleveland and New York do add a whole flavor to this thing. No pun intended, as I'm watching her get stuff from the ice cream truck. I really like she's encouraging him to apply for this audition. I feel like at this stage in my life, this would have been me. Just because I'm not somebody who's comfortable with I love theater. I love going to theater. You don't want me on stage. That's my impression, at least, which is where Ilya's at with this, right? And I really like that he's at that stage in his life where, wow, pretty girl here. I don't want to say no to her. I should say no. Actually, I should say on the inside, I want to say no to her, but I don't want to say no to her. I think it's where he's more this is not something you want to happen. And I love that the book embraces that. She's got that kind of and you've got to establish this quickly. There is something dynamic about her that you get why he's drawn to her. She's not over the top. She's real, but yet there is something striking and intriguing about her, not just visually, but her personality. That's really good writing. When you've got a character like her, you get like I get why he's going over there and auditioning. He'd be a fool not to.
Yeah.
Because she feels like she's relatable. She feels like I can see where he's like, maybe this could work. Look we're hitting it off. And you feel that in the conversation between the two of them. You know, he knows he's he's presenting himself like, I'm a dork in this whole thing. But yet, this is the first time in a while I've felt like a spark. And it seems very much like a two-way spark. And I think it genuinely is here. Like, there's something going on between the two of them, and we're seeing it unfold. And it's important to establish this here because of where this story goes. If you have not established this falls apart quickly. And I really like that about the relationship between Nikki and Ilya early on, all centered around this ice cream truck.
Yep. Oh, God, yeah. And again, I loved how, we just go right through this. And we talked about earlier how they have that little scroll where it's telling you the backstory. They're within context of their story. They're talking about stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Because last issue, they had the infamous 10-cent beer night where the villain took over and did a bunch of weird, goofy stuff. And Ilya, as Apama, kind of messed up. He messed up big time. And in this story, we're still seeing the aftermath, and we're still getting the flashback where he accidentally hit one of his friends, and that person's now in a coma, because of the swelling on the brain. They had to do a medically induced coma to try to help that guy. And I loved how the fact that again, this is all about some of the stupid stuff that he's done as the hero, where he's trying to do the right thing, but doesn't always just completely get it. And that's one of the really cool things about Apama, in that in his heart, there's a good guy there. But sometimes application, he makes a mistake. He messes up here. He does this wrong. And it was kind of neat to see this continuation of the story. And again, as I've talked about the power of the page flip, you get this great kind of flirtation between him and Nikki, and then you flip into reality where he's hearing about his buddy, who's in the coma. You're hearing then going back to the cops who are like, hey, who is this guy? We got to stop him, So I love just how they
hold on. Yeah. They're not really saying that. Because when you take a look at it, they're actually sitting here saying, we got a lot of weird stuff going on in Cleveland. And when it comes to Apama, they're saying the official word is we need to bring him in, but he saved Officer Rushford's life. Some weird stuff's been happening in Cleveland, but it's not so bad to have one of those weirdos on our side. So they're not saying they need to bring him in. I think if everything were equal and the other weird stuff were happening, absolutely they'd be saying we're going to bring him in. Right now, I think they're kind of like, let's leave him alone for the moment, because at least this is a weirdo who saved somebody's life. Let's focus on some of these other costume clowns that are out there, because, they're referring to, they're referring to the hippie woman, they're referring to Bloom. And I like that this saga, now 10 issues in, has introduced a lot of characters that are winding up on the streets that are causing, it's like Spidey's cast of characters, right? His rogues. As these rogues are getting introduced, and it's different with Ilya because they aren't ending clean. Well, Spidey didn't either, though. A lot of times, Spidey, it's like you marveled at the fact that he kept going. Ilya is really at that crisis of conscience as far as should I even be continuing with this particular situation right now. But I don't think the police have been ordered to hunt him down. I think they're a little more reluctant to do that because of the fact that at least he's a weirdo who seems to be on their side with this, as they reference. I thought that was intriguing. I do think, if they were standing face to face with him, depending on the circumstance, I do think he'd wind up in cuffs.
Yes. And if you were to walk in and say, hey, I'm Apama, they'd arrest him on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to at the moment. But I think they're happy to not make him a priority.
And of course, the target is the hippies. So let's take out the hippies.
I do like his talking rat.
Yeah.
Just because he's complaining about the fact that he, I don't know, I'm thinking about wind up in jail because of all this, please. And like, has come back with saying, oh yeah, behind bars, stuff like that, that's going to be tough. I'm like, the metaphor, and he's totally not getting it, that what is it? Liza is like poking fun at him, saying like, hey, dude, this is my life.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. They always talk about how rats are intelligent creatures.
Yes.
Because of problem solving and blah, 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 and all that stuff. I do love the rat in this series.
I do too.
It was funny going back and reading this issue. I forgot how funny the rat was. And I'm going like, oh yeah, the rat's a neat little sidekick. Just a little dig into him.
Well, and you need that because the rat kind of serves the purpose in some cases of being us. And I think that's where interacting with Ilya is fun because of the fact that we do see he has some issues and he has some maturing to do and he needs to get it together and figure himself out. But there's something likable about him. And I think the rat helps with that too, where the rat's like his mentor. And Apama's not one thing. It's an experience, and it's all of the supporting characters, and the rat is critical to all. Like, this is a very different Jiminy Cricket, and I love it. I absolutely love the aspect of it that the rat's not afraid to tell him how it is.
Well, and it's funny because the rat's really is the one that gets him going out, and actually gets him to do the audition. Because he's sitting there saying, "Hey, you've been sitting there forever. Go out and do something. Make yourself feel better." And I love just how they did this whole page where you really see him, you see Ilya drawn and he's all depressed kind of stuff. And he just was going through all the mistakes he has made in 10 issues, and I'm just like, man, he's done some pretty, wrong stuff here. And I love just how you go through this. And at the end, you got the rat saying, dude, snap out of it. He's the smack to the head that we all would do to our friend at this point in time. And I love how, you get this kind of sort of depressing, great flashback to what has happened. Then you go into the next page and it's positive energy when he's at the Near West Theater.
Yes.
That's one of the things this book does great, where they do these, as I said, the roller coaster of emotion where you're down and bam, there's a pop of energy.
When she walks in, because he was ready to leave, walk out the door. And I honestly could see, especially at this stage of my life when I was younger, I'm like, what am I even doing here? I could see myself leaving and going right back out the door before something happens. She shows up on the scene like a storm. And this is where the people you interact with make you better or make you do things or motivate you to do things that you wouldn't have otherwise done. She comes in and she's immediately engaging. She's recognizing, I think almost immediately, 'cause she's a good person. She's recognizing almost immediately that he's uncomfortable. She's probably been there before, when she started down this path. So she's trying to help him, to encourage him, to get him to, try this. This is a chance to grow. It's such a cool thing because it is this open audition. What's the worst that could happen, right? He doesn't get picked. So, at the end of the day, so what? You've gone through this experience and given it a shot. I love that what we see is there's 4 people auditioning in there who clearly understand vaudeville. They've got a vaudeville number, 3 people besides him that are auditioning that have clearly some experience in vaudeville. They get to him and he's doing what I would be doing. We will rock you. And I love that because I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't have a number ready to go either. But where he shines is in the dance portion because of the fact that he has these abilities because of Apama. He's actually killing it with all of that. It's something that he's getting a chance to express himself with Apama in a very different way. It's actually having a positive effect at that moment on him, where he would have been pretty much so cut almost immediately because of his initial audition until this part of it. The physical talent portion of him is where he's actually shining.
Oh God, yeah. It is funny because one, the director in the book is Bob Navis Jr., who, by the way, is the artistic director at the Near West Theater. So that's the real guy, So again, little coolness there. But I do love how they tied in the fact that he's got this animal spirit, because that's what Apama is. Apama is this undiscovered animal that is the single greatest animal out there, that just disappeared from the records and disappeared from the history books and just is this untapped spirit and energy. And so as the animal in him, he would have this fluidness. He would have this fluidity. And when it comes time to audition for the freak, they all have to do these contortionist poses, and he just busts out this completely unnatural, unusual pose, which, again, going back to the original Apama story, that was how he initially tapped into the power of Apama.
Right.
Was this. So I love how they go back through this. And they show everybody above him trying to do something weird and goofy, and they're doing pretty cool. And then he just goes up there and he does it. I love the look on everybody's face. How they're like, whoa, this just changed everything. I'm like, damn, that is cool.
Well, it's what he was looking for. He was looking for something freakish. Yeah. So you want it to be something odd. So when the rest of them are all doing something that, taps into something that's known, contortion, they're doing what you can do at that moment. He's delivering the odd, the unusual. That's where it really shined. And when people are in awe, you can't help but say, oh, we may have a spot for him.
Yeah.
That part worked. Ilya's family, and we get to see, obviously him reacting with, his friend who, he unwittingly is responsible for being in the hospital. But back at his home, his family and the interactions with them, I think we've all been at points in time of our life where either on a small extent or a larger extent, you've been met with parental disapproval, or at least your perception of parental disapproval. Because I do think in many ways his family roots for his success and wants his success, but they've gotten to a point where it's like, Ilya, come on already. You can get yourself together. It's an interesting sort of relationship because I feel like we're seeing so much of Ilya's perspective of how his family views him. And that part I really like because it would be interesting to see this more from the parent. Like, how do the parents see themselves in their relationship with him? You know what I mean? That's when I feel like characters are alive, is when I start thinking more of, well, if we saw this from a different angle, how would this scene play out? And I like that. I really enjoy that aspect of all of this. The play starts to get much more interesting as the auditions continue on, because we're starting to see people in costume. We're starting to see characters who are manifesting themselves, and I find like the whole theater world intriguing because I enjoy going to the theater and seeing the theater. The behind the scenes stuff that is being delivered on this is, I think it's where you can really start going over the top and having fun, because now you can start building characters behind the scenes and plopping them into the roles of being eventual nemesis for Apama. I like that there were colorful characters, intriguing new storylines. Sir Terror, I thought, was really interesting because Vincent Reed has a backstory. And Vincent Reed shines the most when he's playing some form of villain on stage. He can play other characters, but he most enjoys playing them probably just because of their multiple layers, right? You and I are both big wrestling fans, right? And there's a lot of superstars. I like following Arn Anderson's podcast. He talks about how the joy of playing a villain because of the fact that you really get to go crazy and there's not a lot of rules around you. It's interesting to see that it being presented here with theater characters. And I actually find the character of Vincent Reed, Sir Terror, very interesting, which is critical as you're crafting and introducing these characters, because he becomes very much the character that he's playing, Sir Terror, but we've got to see this character come to life first as a character before we see him become real. And that transition is really interesting because he really is playing a stage character at first. And that part, where this story goes is not where I was thinking it was going to go. You get the same thing with Nikki and Tap Dance Killer. Each page is an introduction to characters and Fletcher. So we've got 3 characters that are being introduced that really are characters being played by people who are there to be on stage. Some of them more professional stage actors. Some of them are people that do this, like, Klaus is a butcher.
Yeah.
So he's doing this. He's an actor, but he's doing this on the side. It's not his main gig. This is very much what it's like in theater. And I love that not everybody has one cookie cutter story with this. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, and I love how they tied this in. Again, as they're explaining what the story that they're supposed to be doing is, they're throwing out the characters. Then it's kind of like the playbill description of who the actor is playing the role. Because if you ever you read, they give out the playbills. They have these little backstories on each of the actors playing it. So they tie that in there, but then it's also still showing in the confines of what should be the show. And I love how they're explaining what the actual show is supposed to be, giving us this background on who the main nemesis are going to eventually become, all within the confines of this. It's absolutely brilliant. We've got a multiple tier approach for the storytelling, but it's not just like, here's this, here's that. It's blended in and meshed. Each of these characters have their own individual page. The layout is absolutely brilliant. I love how it's, again, not a traditional forming, but it still follows the traditional pathway, so it's easy for you to understand and follow what's going on. But again, it's a different way to tell a classic story of our villain origin. I love this.
Well, they're playing the villains on stage. They're becoming more evil as these villains, but the layer is, what happens if they actually became these villains?
Yeah.
And that we're not there yet. They're the actors still playing it within the confines of this story. But that's the part that is really, really interesting, because we get to see the modus operandi of these characters within the context of the story that they're delivering on the stage. And that part is just something that I really enjoyed through all of this. Because the character of the freak is being offered an opportunity to be one of them, turns down that opportunity and runs away in the confines of the story. This stuff's all critical because it plays out later.
Yes.
That's the part that's really interesting. Nothing that happens here is, well, that's just happening on stage. Yeah, right now.
But eventually.
Yeah. It is interesting to see him don the role of Apama again, because, he's got a life, and he had a girlfriend who loves him at least was attracted to him and building a relationship with him because of his being Apama. So it's like Spider-Man and Black Cat to a certain extent, in the sense that, she's Apama's girlfriend, or was. Her idea of, and this is where Ilya's running into, she's connecting with him because he's like this troubled soul, and she's trying to get herself, her own life, under herself, and getting her own foundations, which is, you could see how they related. But imagine that when you come back and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did something happen to her? And it's, nope, she left. She knew he would come back at some point, but had no other way to contact him other than to leave the note on the table.
Yes.
Which is the problem with the secret identity. And I really liked that. I just thought that was a very clever way of going about it, that she was like, I hope at some point that he sees this.
Again, yeah, I love this. This was, again, one of those little, when I was reading it through for the episode, I'm like, oh, yeah, and I don't know about you, but I had to go back and reread after doing this. I went through I wanted to reread everything again, just to re-experience it again. So it was kind of neat having that other tie-in connection, because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's falling for Nikki, but he's feeling guilty about about Apama's girlfriend. Well, that problem's now solved. Yay!
You meant you reread
the problem.
Do you mean you reread Apama 1 through 9? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I did that too. And I do encourage anybody to listen to this. Like, we're focusing on the issues. These 10 and 11 are the issues leading to the origin of Tap Dance Killer. But if you're finding that you're enjoying the Ilya story in this, definitely go back and read Apama's issues 1 through 9. It's well worth it.
Oh God, yeah. Again, it was one of those things where I'm like, I did the prep for the show, and then after doing it, I'm like, I've got to reread it again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just something that just naturally pulled you in, and they do a brilliant job of explaining the stuff you need in the back.
Yeah,
you know, and that happened in the past, in the present. Like this little bit here, a couple panels given so you understand exactly who, Trina is, how she's connected to Apama and all that. And, so it was a great usage of it. And I also do love the fact that he's like, wow, I just got dumped, which happens to this guy a lot.
Yeah. I like when he encounters Hawk. And we get to see the bird, his interactions with animals, I think, are something that I really enjoy, right? Because he seems to, his relationships with friends seem to ebb and flow, but at least these animals seem to be sticking around with him. He's got these kind of connections there that I think are really, really interesting. Hawk was a great character. And you see how, like, if this guy can get it together, he could wind up being an effective hero. And actually use some of this maybe to more effectively interact with life in general. That potential is something that I really enjoy about this story. Is that, like, you see a tunnel for him, a light that he could start heading toward at a certain point in time when he connects all of this. One of my favorite characters in this is it's a foundational character, but also more of a guest star, Nadine Pickering.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was one thing at first, and to find out that she's a catalyst for all of this is something that was really cool, because she comes in and she is supposedly there to, do like the publisher's preview, to, basically review them and tell them whether or not, like, this is worth going forward with. She is critiquing all of them, with the exception of the main 3 villains, who she's critiquing, but in giving them a dressing down, but saying you're the only things worthwhile in all of this, all with a different plan, a different intention. I didn't see where she was coming. And that was something that I thought that was an interesting character, with her being the catalyst. I'm just going to go jump to it, if that's okay, because we can jump back and talk a little bit more about the Ilya and Nikki interactions, because those are important. But where she goes, she ends up giving them these drinks. The drinks are really potions that are, I think, forever changing them, making them more their characters, making them, lose their inhibitions, making them, because instead of these being characters, these start to become who they actually are.
Yes.
And it's almost like their previous identity is almost an act versus, it's a serious role reversal that's going here. I really like that they're all victims, because it makes you sympathetic for the 3 of them to a certain extent, because they're actors, especially Nikki. They're actors who, because of this potion, whatever it is that they've taken, have now turned into killers and a gang, a mob of sorts. And that part is really interesting. It's a different sort of method of this. Spidey has a lot of sympathetic villains in his role. Some of Batman's villains have that sympathetic piece where you feel for them, right, and what they do. This has that flavor to them, and I really like that, where it's, well, yeah, they're bad, and the stuff they do is bad, but my gosh, look at their origin. You can't help but feel for them in what they're going through. And I think it was an interesting choice, and because it adds the shades of gray are far more interesting than black and white. There are some very strong shades of gray in this.
It's one of those really cool ways of doing it, because, all 3 of them are good people.
Yes.
Who, because of this potion, are turned into their characters. Mm-hmm. And I love that we get this transformation of these honest, decent people. You feel bad for the creepy embalmer guy, because going back to his little backstory, they say he only got back into. He was a butcher. He was happy doing what he was. He got back into doing some acting on the side just because of his wife's recent passing. He needed just to fill in some time. So you feel bad for the guy. He deals with losing his wife. Now he's a creepy embalming, evil, lethal artist of embalmer, artistic embalmer. I'm like, oh, and he ends up being like the creepiest of the three of them. And I absolutely love where we start seeing his character growth and his character evolution. But again, Nikki, we're already connected to because of her and the budding romance between her and Ilya. They got a definite spark. Things are going great between them. Let's add the little twist. And once again, with our boy Apama here, he always has that little twist. And a couple pages earlier, even Hawk led to that, saying, "Okay, Romeo, just his luck with the women is not good." And I love just he's at a point where things are looking good. Things are looking on the uptick, for him. And then, guess what? Time to pull the rug out from under you, buddy.
What's interesting about her is where she's at in the stage of her life. She knows her direction. She knows her path. She's, mentioned I thought about the New York thing, even have a standing sponsor, that type of thing. But she's like, I always felt like I belong here. So, she's still staying at the local end in her pursuits. She's like... It's so funny what she likes about him. What I like about you, Ilya, is that you don't overthink stuff. I'm like, well, he's got a lot going on in his head, but I can kind of sort of see where you're going with this. But she's like, you go for it and let the chips fall. She's talking about how fearless he is. And I'm like, Nikki, I don't know that you've totally nailed Ilya right now. There's some serious fear in Ilya. But I like that she sees in him what he needs, and that's he needs to be more fearless. He needs to take chances. He needs to take that step into life versus watching life from the outside, which is what he's doing. That's across the board. Even as Apama right now, he's not fully interacting. And I think that's something that she's bringing to the table is living life, where Ilya hasn't been. I really like that theme with her, that she brings that aspect. I'm so sad for this couple because I think like she could do so much for him in just, we all, because of the people we know and the people we care about and stuff like that, hopefully they compliment you in some way that help make you into something more. You pull in some of their qualities. You learn from them. You model them to yourself. I could see her doing that for him. It's such a tragic story because of this evil person who comes up and says, "Hey, excuse me, Miss St. Clair, I need to speak with you privately." I'm like, no, let them keep talking. This was working.
Yeah.
When Ilya's walking her home later and we see the after effects, I love that we as a reader, in a very intimate sense, have this idea of Houston, we've got a problem. She's still clearly into him. There's still a relationship there, but we're starting to see something is going wrong with her. Ilya's noticing it. So, she's almost, and the way she's putting the brakes on things with him, saying, hey, we just need to go a little slower, that things that start fast end fast. Some of that was a line from her, and it felt like a line. You know what I mean? Like something's different about her, something's a little bit off. I think Ilya's right as he's walking away on what he's feeling, because she's been the aggressor in this relationship to a certain extent. Somebody's always the one that is initially starting things, and your relationship hopefully eventually finds that balance of both people being moving at the same speed. It's interesting to have her sitting here saying that I need to slow it down a little bit. And I'm like, well, that was the way that this has been going. You've been like 0 to 60, whereas Ilya is still on a bicycle. It's a very interesting sort of switch in role in the relationship. It's a sign that something's different. And I really like that.
Well, her dialogue pattern is different.
Yeah,
she's back. She's talking like the character talks because, again, the story takes place back in the Roaring 20s.
Yes.
So she's got that the 20s dialogue going on. She's not Nikki completely anymore. Mm-hmm. There's still Nikki in there, but the tap dance killer is actually kind of more in the driver's seat. And I love how they blend just enough of the little one-liners of, hey, too much giggle water and, love you lots, kid, and, it's little bits that they throw in there, but there's still enough of Nikki that it wouldn't throw him off. Plus also, he's really thinking, hey, she's awesome. How am I, what the heck is going on here, man? How is someone this hot into me? This is great. And I love how he's also distracted at this point in time to see those little variations. So great storytelling on who it is. And then, and it's not until we flip the page that we really see the evolution of these characters with Vincent Reed's.
That was a good choice. Like going with Nikki and Ilya first and then going to Vincent, I thought was really smart because you want to keep it intimate. You want to keep the characters that we care about. Vincent, we don't have that relationship with. We do in the fact that he's one of the stage actors and all that, sure. But it's not the same level of closeness that we have with Ilya and Nikki, who we've been rooting for, right?
Yep.
Smart move doing that and then taking the real, okay, now we know what's going on with Nikki, with what we see with Vincent, who is becoming Mr. Terror. And we see him doing that. I love that he knocks the guy out and goes home, but Claus comes in and says, "Don't worry, boss. I clean up that mess you left back there." That guy's dead, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, now art has very much come into life in a very, very dangerous way, where I'm like, he gets home, and I'm like, Vincent's only answer is magnificent. I'm like, uh-oh, now we really do have a problem.
Oh, and also, by the way, Statler Arms, where Vincent lives, is a great place. My sister lived there for a period when she was living downtown.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat that she actually lived there. That's neat. I didn't know.
As I said, I've got multiple times where I'm like, hey, I know that place. Yeah. That's one of them. Mary lived there.
I know where it is too, but I didn't have that connection with it. That's cool. That's really neat. So back in Nikki's place, we're starting to see that, she's actually thrown on the full-blown outfit, and she's starting to realize that she is the tap dance killer in the way that she's acting. She's tearing up the floor. I mean, that ability of now your kicks mean something else, the way you tap means something else. It's something that will come into play later that I think is just incredibly interesting is now all of a sudden I want to know what that potion is, if it changed them physically in any way. Because there's a lot to be said about the power of suggestion, right? Where your mind now has you becoming something else. And the mind's a very powerful thing, as we know. What I'd love to know is did that potion do something more than just mental? Is there a physical component to it? I don't know. It's more of a question that came out of this whole thing.
My opinion is yes, it did.
Yeah.
It did make some physical changes to him. And it's later in the in one of the fight sequences later in issue 11 where it kind of rears its head, and also some stuff later on in Tap Dance Killer series. Yeah, it looks like there was actually some physical augmentation of them.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's specific to the character they've become.
Yeah,
because it's not the same for all of them. Yeah, actually, and it manifests itself a lot more in Tap Dance Killer, I think, when we get into other characters. We'll talk more about Punchline and things like that when we get to that character as well. And I think that's a sign of maybe a little bit more of what's going on here. This cover for issue number 11, the initial cover, one of the things I really enjoy about the various variant covers, and there's a lot of them out there, it's actually one of the things they embrace and have a lot of fun with talent really playing around with classic comic covers, talent really playing around with thematic covers, and just having fun and breaking the fourth wall and talking like this one. Now, don't you worry. This is just a publicity shot for the cover of the comic. I'm not planning to actually kill him until we get inside the pages. I love stuff like that. I'm a geek for stuff like that. And I thought that was just a great cover. And then, the next page with the cover with Tap Dance Killer Rules, I thought was just, it was another cool cover. Covers have been just something that I think has been a joy that they've really, really enjoyed with this. So, nothing like Vaudeville Act 2, and I like even the opening. Intermission is over. Just embracing the whole theme. This 2 issues in particular, as far as introducing a series of villains that leads into the Tap Dance Killer series, which is so interesting. They are so fully fleshed out that, yes, you do want to see more of them, and you want to get more into where these characters go. This is how you build something. We're back on stage at this point. But we as readers know, Houston, we've got a problem on this stage because 3 of those people there are no longer acting. They are those people. That is a very different series of events when you've got that type of thing going on. And I really enjoyed the theming of this and how it played out.
Oh, God, yeah. Remembering Jim Carrey's Cable Guy series, when he's at the medieval times and the one guy looks at him, hey, buddy, I think he's for real. Watch yourself. That's like the immediate feeling I had from this. And again, I love just how they're drawn, and you can really see it. And the director's like, yeah, that's it. You guys are into the character. No, they are the character. He's a dead man.
What's interesting is Ilya and her have been kind of tied at the hip since the beginning of all this. This is another big change because he's trying to work out a date with her tonight. It's like, saying, you want to go bowling or something? Just trying to get something together. And she's like, sorry, got plans for tonight. Sorry, personal stuff or private stuff. No freaks allowed. The attitude's different. The way she's carrying herself is different. Nikki of old, even if she had something else to do, would have handled Ilya a little. There would have been more affection. There would have been something different. We as the reader can see the immediate change from the person that we were dealing with in the last issue. I loved that.
Yeah. And I love how it's kind of explained away, and leads to what's going on with the one stagehand guy saying, hey, watch yourself, dude. She's got an ex that's not always an ex. So giving Ilya a reason as to maybe why she's acting this way, not going the route that actually happened. He's thinking, okay, maybe she's got something private going on, and that kind of stuff. I loved, again, little stuff to keep him guessing, to keep us so, asking you the question, why didn't he see this? Why didn't he understand? What the heck? Why didn't he notice? All these little stuff they're doing to try to just subtle it up, calm it down a little bit so he doesn't think, that she's been possessed.
Bob and Ilya have this really cool sequence here, and I really liked how this was written. Because, first of all, it was the first time that it really struck me that I'm like, what they did with Ilya's hair. The way that they took his hair and tricked it out, so that way it's standing out. It almost looks alive. I think was just really a cool choice, adding to the whole freak vibe with him. But Bob's recognizing that this guy had a killer audition, but he's no longer tapping into that. Where is that raw piece that we saw when he did that crazy pose? And it's like, I need that guy now. I need to pep talk this guy and get him into it. I just ended up watching the final season of Cobra Kai. Yeah. And, Johnny and Daniel are having conversations that are almost like this level where it's don't get psyched out how you're doing it with the kids and with each other. If people listen to this, if you haven't watched Cobra Kai and you're a fan of Karate Kid at all, do yourself a favor and watch that show. It's amazing. And it's an example of how you wrap up they did 6 seasons and it just ended. It ended perfectly. Which so often things do not do. It's always the ending is good, but it wasn't this satisfying crescendo. This was a crescendo. But where I'm going with that is in the motivational talks, some of them were, or even just 2 characters having a moment or a confrontation. you have to feel like, what was the reasoning behind this? What are we trying to do? This is a really good sequence where Bob's like, you've got this freak in you. We saw it. Like, the pose you did was outrageous. That doesn't just happen. You have something inside you that you channeled. You just let it go. Tap into that, and in many ways he doesn't know it, but he's saying, let Apama out.
Yes.
And I really liked everything about this because it kind of fits where Ilya's at in his life, but you just know that we've got 3 actors right now who are becoming the character. They are those characters now. In the case of Ilya could be the freak. Bob's recognizing that that's a thing. Like, you can tap into this, and you could be this shining star of all of this, and he needs him to be in order for this production to work. I just thought it was a really solid sequence. Knowing his awkwardness in the acting world, I felt like it added another layer of reality of this with me that I really enjoyed and needed. It was a good scene.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. And again, I love how Bob even says, it's not just about on stage. It's about who he is, here, outside, be who you are. It's kind of that, be who you are. Let yourself be free to be the freak. Let yourself be free to, just to unleash this. And again, it's talking about here on stage. It's, it's talking about Apama. This is the kind of stuff that, later on this hero is going to tap into, to be Apama, to be the hero, to step up when needed. It's I don't want to say this is his "with great power comes great responsibility" speech, because it's not, but it has that same kind of vibe that, the hero can tap into at some point in time when he's feeling doubts, when he's feeling like, am I even going to be a hero? Can I be a hero? I've just got to be who I am. I got to be the freak. I got to be Apama. And I loved, one page, a couple panels could get me thinking down the line, could get me thinking, 2-3 issues down the line into, various other stuff where you could see him tapping into just that notion of be who you are.
Nothing like vaudeville. Actually, there's a point in making sure we reference this fact in the storyline. They keep referring to this play, Nothing Like Vaudeville. They actually had a rock band. Ted and Kurt Sikora formed a vaudeville-influenced rock band called Nothing Like Vaudeville in 1992. So there is a cool history, and it's something that I really do like about the Apama-verse. Apama, the character itself, came from Hero Tomorrow, and which was a movie about a artist who was creating this comic book about Apama, who was this undiscovered animal. This hero gets his powers from this animal. And it's this very unique animal. So in the comic that we're reading right now, Apama got his powers from this undiscovered animal. And one of the cool things about it is there's a mixture in this of magic and supernatural. I know they kind of go together, but there's sometimes pieces when you mix the two worlds together that are interesting. There's a bit of a science aspect to what's going on in this book sometimes. And I really like that unique flavor. So I want to be very clear. Ilya has powers. And I don't think we really talked about that beforehand. He does have powers, but he's an example of a hero who's trying to figure out what those powers are and how to use them for good, or whether or not he should be using them at all. Which is interesting to bring him back right now, because he's talking about the pull of the Apama spirit with relation to his conversation with the director. He's also recognizing this girl I'm interested in, something is off. Something was off on her walk home. Now something is off on where she's going now. So I'm going to follow her, which isn't creepy at all.
No, not at all.
like saying like, yeah, Ilya, there's like, I love that I was reading this segment. I was going to myself, I'm like, oh, he's doing the right thing, but can't know that he's doing the right. Like, this is an example of his doing the right thing here is a happy accident, because he's following her because he's jealous and upset over the fact of the "no freaks allowed" comment. And I'm sitting here like, Ilya, you really shouldn't be doing this.
Yes.
And every aspect of that, again, goes back to, I think, who Ilya is. We get it. We've all been jealous. We've all gone through sequences like that. I'm not justifying it. Don't get me wrong. But I like that Ilya's flawed. And as I'm going through here, I'm going, yeah, dude, if you had asked me about this first, I would have said, don't do this.
Yes. And also, again, he's following her, but he's following her as Apama.
Right.
Now on one hand, it's, he's putting, if he was just himself, not in the costume, that would be one thing. But now he's pulling Apama into it. Now it's kind of
wait, hold on. Stalking her is still stalking her.
No, I'm saying it's worse that he's Apama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's bad if he was doing it, but by putting the Apama costume, it kind of takes it up another level of creepy. Because if he was just following her, that's him.
That's right.
He could always say, "Hey, I'm just concerned about you, whatnot, blah blah blah," try to cover it up. But by putting on the Apama costume, he is full on stalking.
That's right. Doggone it! If you're going to stalk somebody, be honest about it.
Exactly. It's wrong. I'm not saying it's right.
No, but it's more right if you're hiding in the shadows, at least without wearing a costume.
Exactly, because you're being upfront. There's a level of honesty to it.
No, there isn't.
And people wonder why Jim is.
I'm just laughing at the insanity of this conversation. Like, it's more wrong now because he's wearing a costume that shows that actually, I think he's being more honest about it wearing the Apama costume. Because at least in that one, he looks like he's a freak and what he's doing is freaky. Your example of it is actually smarmier, where he's trying to cover for it. This is just flat out honest, out open, and wrong. It actually gets him into a whole world of trouble, too. The fact that he starts following her this way. Because, in truth, here's the reality. I'm glad he does, because he starts to uncover what's really going on with her. So there's that piece where, as a reader, you're kind of like, I'm glad he does this. But it does, right, vigilantes and the whole concept of superheroes, right? There is, like, a moral question about that, right? Like, is this okay to do or not? I like that this brings that into question. But as he's looking in on them and finding out what's going on, he wouldn't have discovered it otherwise. But it also puts him front and center, because now that he knows what's going on, he is getting more involved with it, which is going to paint a target on him with this whole thing. And I really enjoy that. I also like that this is where we start seeing them get an upgrade from stage props to real weapons.
Yes.
So everything before was stage props, and now they're being adjusted for that purpose. The shoes are different. Like its claws. His claws now all of a sudden is their cue, for lack of a better term. I really enjoy how the chapeau is almost like the hat from Odd Job. Yeah. I just really like that we get this kind of theming, that like this no longer is this fake stage prop thing. And they've kidnapped somebody, which is really an important piece in here. It's Brunetti, which this becomes a key piece right now. They're taking out somebody who's big and would be competition for them. This is a very real opportunity to take down and kill. So she really kicked him right there. And we know this is leading to the death of Brunetti. Yes. Brunetti's going to be no more after this. This is a power play that we're witnessing unfold. And Ilya hasn't completely caught up yet, but he's starting to realize this is no longer method acting. This is something very real going on. I like the stages of his reality of realizing, because there's this sweet girl he met at the ice cream truck, very much who she is. That person's slowly but surely fading into the background. Do you think Nikki's still in? Like, how much of Nikki is still in there at this point?
I think Nikki's still in there and can make appearances.
Yeah.
But right now, the tap dance killer is in charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things with, her personality. She's not full on Tap Dance Killer yet.
Agreed.
There's still Nikki in there, but she's gonna eventually go away.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where it's really intriguing. This interlude piece was, I thought, something that was really cool with the fortune and the wound and what we've got going on. Vika is discovering that there's something more to Ilya in what's going on. And the chest tattoo and finding out, like, does this mean anything to you? What's going on with Apama? This is something that winds up playing out for the character. I really like that we get this, because Vic is a character, if you haven't been reading Apama, this is a girl who's been deeply connected with Ilya. And she's asking all the right questions. Like, I know there's something going on with him, and it all started with this. What is this? That interlude was just very, very cool piece. What I liked about it is it's a single page. So if you haven't been reading it, right now it gets you intrigued about reading more. And if you want to know more about that, read Apama issues 1 through 9. All of that will become readily apparent what's going on there. This story, for the purposes of going back to Tap Dance Killer, we then jump back to the next day. Mm-hmm. And Ilya's going back and visiting Nikki, and everything seems normal at once. And I like that he's coming back in with, let's go back to our core. Let me bring back in the ice cream. Let's kind of reconnect with who we are originally. Like, this is what, there was something sweet between us that was going on. That, all of that, it's almost like the Tap Dance Killer now is putting on the act of being Nikki versus being Nikki now. Nikki's a guest star in her own life, whereas Tap Dance Killer is the primary personality that's here. This whole piece with the gun and spying and everything that's going on was super cool. He said one too many things, and it triggered her, literally.
No pun intended.
Yeah, yes. With the gun piece where she's saying it was empty, like, it was, but Ilya seeing the bullets on the table when the phone call's going on is, like, when did it begin? When did it get it? Obviously, I think all the time it was on Ilya's head. It was empty, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the gun she had with her when they were dealing with Brunetti. So It wasn't going to empty at one point in time, but just now it is. And I do love, just the moments where, as you said, this is the Tap Dance Killer pretending to be Nikki.
Right.
And he kind of gets to her, a little bit. In there, she's like, I'm not the freak. I'm Ilya, right? And then it's like, I wouldn't hurt you. And again, that's not Nikki talking.
No.
The I wouldn't hurt you, lover, man. See, empty. That is, tap dance right there. That's TDK, 100%. And I do love that, she's, keeping the character, and then she's just talking to Vinny. Yeah, just chilling with my boy, and it's okay. But I love the fact that because he has that enhanced hearing, mm-hmm. he can hear the other side of the conversation. He can hear what, Vincent Reed is saying to her about how, it's, I don't trust you running with that Weasley bastard freak. Just that whole everything he knows. And the fact that she's not reacting to it, it lets him know something else is going on here. She's lying to me.
Oh,
something's not completely kosher with Nikki right now. Yeah. And I love how they played this out. I love, again, artwork, the art usage on there where it's, you're seeing just his spotting the bullets and just a look of concern, everything that's going on in his face. But I especially love just how she's got that sweet and innocent look on her face, which 100% is an act. This is absolutely brilliant usage of art, telling the story along with the written word. It's wonderful.
I want to remind everyone again that dude's not being paid for this play, which was a major contention of his father. Mm-hmm. So he's doing all this. Like, would you keep going back to this play if you were being dropped in the middle of all this? I would be out, like, at this point. Like, listen, Bob, I need to talk to you. I need to apologize to you. But something freaky's going on here. So I'm turning in my notice. I want your play to, listen, I like you. I want your play to go forward. Let's be honest. I'm not very good. So why don't you find somebody who is? and I really apologize. Thank you for the experience. It's been nice being here with you, sort of. But I'm going to be checking out at this point. No, he keeps going to work, keeps getting the crazy hair thing going on, and it is getting him deeper and deeper into trouble because he can't help himself at this point in time. He is all in on uncovering what is going on. And he keeps saying that I can only do so much as Ilya the Ice Cream Man. I'm like, no, dude. I think maybe you should have stayed as the Ice Cream Man. I think you were getting somewhere with Nikki as the Ice Cream Man. I think your problem was you were bringing your Apama nonsense into the Ice Cream Man, and that's why she was ready to shoot you. And I love that part of this story. I love all of this where I'm like, I get what he's doing, dun, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But, like, dude, this is a job for Apama. Like, you need to go, like, they need, like, an online correspondence course for superheroing that our friend, poor Ilya, can join into. Because I do think he's a good dude. And I actually love so much about this because of the fact that they're embracing the fact that this guy's a rookie. And it is not a world where he has superhero mentors to be modeling himself after, right?
Right.
It's superheroes in media. There is no training program for him to go through. He's trying to do the right thing. He really cares about this girl, which that part, you can't, everybody's had those people that they've loved and cared about. Even if it's just family, on that end. We have people that we care about and friends who, like, I don't know, this is my person on some level. I'm going to go see what's going on with him and see if there's some way I can help. At the very other piece, too, is if he's being burned, now you've got the ego piece of just treat me like a fool. Mm-hmm. And that's a motivator, too. I actually love that everything that he's doing I can relate to, even though I think he's doing it wrong.
Yes.
Because when you're not emotionally invested, like you're not that person that's front and center of it, it's very easy to do what we're doing right now. We've all got great advice, so we can all be objective. When it's you that's that person, you're in it's tunnel vision, right? Ilya's got tunnel vision right now. And that part is the way this is all playing out, where now we've got Terror going into other businesses, trying to, start creating an empire. I love how that is all playing out here. That he's being denied, and the guy's pretending that doesn't know who Brunetti is and stuff like that. So when Terror's not getting what he wants, hey, TDK,
yep,
go in there and take care of business. And there's nothing fake about this. Seeing her use that weapon for the first time, seeing her fight for the first time, and now we're getting some of what you were talking about earlier. This is where she's been enhanced in some way. And I do believe that psychologically, that people through adrenaline and through emotion and can psychologically do a lot more than, because the mind's a powerful thing. So I believe there's a certain element of that involved in this, where the brainwashing and all of that turns somebody into, somebody that's hyper strong, in a realistic sense. But I'm also agreeing with you that there's something more at work here. Yes. And I love everything about this, where it's grounded enough that I could see it being both ways. Like, I wouldn't be disappointed to find out this is totally in her head. And what she's able to do now is totally in her head. I would not feel, there's nothing that I'm seeing that is making me go, man, I'd be disappointed to find out that was the case. I also see it with the supernatural nature of this book and what's gone on, that the potion enhanced them in some way that is very specific to the identities that they're adopting. And I would be very comfortable with that as well. I like actually that we're not 100% clear on that. A lot of this is left up to us as the reader to play out the events as we've seen them and discover along the way with the story unfolding what that looks like. I actually prefer that. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, God, yeah. Because, again, like you, if this is just all because of her mindset has changed, she's able to do it, mm-hmm. I'm cool with it. If this is supernaturally enhanced, I'm cool with it. She is much faster and she is stronger than mm-hmm. she was. But here's the thing. there's been a lot of stuff where people have, you got the whole story of a person lifting a car off of a mother lifting a car off the kid. How is she able to do it? People say, oh, it's just adrenaline. It's not just adrenaline. It is just the human mind. Sometimes if you can remove stuff you shouldn't be able to do, you can do it. There's been a lot of studies with people like under trances, hypnosis, being able to physically do stuff they couldn't do before. Just because they didn't have their mind telling them, oh, you can't do this. So part of her strength, her speed, all that could be the fact that any limitations she has on her body have now been removed.
Right.
So very easily could be that, or it could be supernatural, or it could be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Either way, I absolutely do love how this whole thing plays out, where especially when he first shows up and she's like, whoa, we hit the big time, Mr. Apama. And she's going to start fighting the hero because, again, that's how he's perceived in this universe. And I love how he's like, hey, let's just talk this out. She's like, no. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. She's out there, to take down Apama. She's out there to do she's there to kill not Apama yet. She's there to kill the other guy. So, she's got a job to do, and that's what she's going to do. I love how this really did play out. Again,
wait, was she out to kill him or rough him up? And the reason why I'm asking that, and it's a genuine question, by the way. The reason why I'm asking that is because I thought the goal with him, she's a killer, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think at least my impression was that she was there to severely rough him up, and if he isn't going to get on board, kill him. So I'm with you on the killing piece, but was that all she was trying to do? I'm asking the question more on how you perceive it than anything like that, because I thought there's part of me that's thinking with what Terror was trying to do with him, he's denying Terror on that end. If the goal is to terrify him enough that he would be compliant, or was it to kill him? I'm asking you how you're reading it, because I could see them killing him because dude just won't get on board. So what's the point in keeping him around? We've got to send a message that he wouldn't get on board. Look what happened to him. Was she jumping immediately to killing him? Or was it like, I'm going to severely hurt him, and if he gets on board, there's a stay of execution that could happen here?
Okay, I'm taking it killing.
Okay.
And here's why.
Okay.
One, when Sal's telling Terror, get out of here, consider yourself a dead man if I ever see you again, his response back is, I don't think either of us will have to worry about that, Sal. Meaning, he's never going to see him again. This is it. Two, when Apama first crashes in there, she's and he sees what's going on. She's like, "You should have taken the deal, Salzy. Now you're going to be run up the flagpole. Compliments of the tap dance killer."
I like it.
So those two things tell me she was there to kill him. If he didn't take the deal, he's a dead man. But Apama messed it up the plan.
Here's the piece where you were mentioning a little bit of A, a little bit of B. Here's where I'm thinking it's that. She's picking up a cash register.
Yeah.
Those things are heavy. And this is an old school cash register when you take a look at it. Those things were solid and heavy. I loved the Home Alone reference, or this classic movie reference. Keep the change, you filthy animal. I thought that was great.
Well, and the funny thing is, I think her reference isn't Home Alone. No, it's the original movie.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, I agree with you. But I mean, because in Home Alone, it was the movie.
Right.
That was showing in there. So I think you're right. She's not referencing Home Alone, but I think for the general public, most people are going to pick it up as the movie within the movie from Home Alone, which was, I thought it was a very good use of putting in a clip from Out of Time.
Yes, agree completely.
And having everybody kind of connect with, oh, I've seen that before. That was clever. It was clever way to use something contemporary to bring something classic into this. It was meant to do exactly what you're saying. She was definitely pulling in the original. So Illy is trying to save Sal, and I love, this is my favorite superhero stories are the ones where they're not perfect. And in this case, Apama's trying to save him. This guy's getting hurt because of the fact that Apama was pulled aside by the villain, who all the villain needed to do at this stage was yank him out of the way, so that way that whole set of shelves came crashing down on the intended victim. That was great.
Yeah.
The reference at the end where she's sitting here saying, "Don't worry, sweetie, I'd only kill you if I was getting paid, but pray I don't get tossed a nickel for the deed, because you're as good as done, hun."
Yeah.
I like the code of, listen, this is all about business, but somebody makes it business, I'm turning on you. In her mind, actually, a nickel's probably got to be big money.
Yes.
Because of her reference to the 20s and all that. Ilya and Liz have that really cool sequence again. I never thought I would be enjoying a book so much where he is talking to a rat. But we need that with him. He needs that mentoring. There's a little bit of, it's very loose, I want to say, of what I did like about, I grew up in the 70s watching that Shazam TV show with Mentor and Billy Batson. And I like when he was in Billy Batson mode, Mentor was kind of like acting as the person who was guiding Billy. Because he wasn't in the Captain Marvel mode where he was, tapping into the, mental faculties of the gods. So I like that in this case, Ilya is not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Nope.
I like that we've got a mentor who is helping kind of groom him. I just love who the mentor is. Yes. And in these sequences, kind of laying everything on the table for him. You need to quit worrying about her and work on your acting. Those lines last night were terrible. And I like that he's actually giving him acting advice. I like he's basically saying, listen, you and girls again, stay away from the doggone girls. They're a problem. This is a conversation you'd be having with your friends.
Yes. And the fact that his friend's a rat does give you a little bit of chuckle. Mm-hmm. But again, it's one of those things where it's a chuckle that doesn't take away anything from the story.
Yeah.
I love the fact that his Alfred's a rat.
Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of neat to see that. Again, this is a great. And his eye in the sky, his informant, is a pigeon named Hawk. So they do this little subtle throw of humor in this. That again, when you can have a nice blend of humor where it doesn't take away the energy of the story. It's a good usage.
Yeah. Sal DeNoble does the right thing in this environment. He recognizes I should only say so much right now, otherwise I'm going to become a target. I think this buys Sal some time and perhaps buys Sal his life. Because they're asking him, hey, what happened to you? And he's like slipped on a cannoli. It was the basic tough guy lines that I just thought were really smart.
And again, I loved how, gives us a little bit more. We already knew these guys were dirty, and were part of the mob, but it gives a little bit more of a definition of, our original guy, Brunetti, was the consigliere.
Yep.
Sal is a capo with the family. So, again, I like that we already knew there was something funny going on. Well, this is furthering it. And again, it's furthering why the vaudevillians are after these guys. This is a war. This is a mob war going on now. We got old school war going on, and I do love how this final piece. And then I like seeing what they did to Brunetti. It was Klaus doing his thing where he put him in a weird, freaky embalming pose.
It's so interesting on opening night when you see that, the family there coming to see this whole thing, and, they're like even the dad and the mom are like, the mom's like mortified that he's playing a freak, and the dad's kind of like, no, they nailed that. It's like, but the whole audience I thought was a really interesting part of this whole thing. And, behind the scenes, when Nikki comes on the scene and, check out that sexy freak, when she's talking to Ilya, there's parts of Nikki in that conversation, isn't there? Is that how you're reading that?
Yes, 100%.
But then when Terror walks up to him, it's clear like the conversations happened. Like he knows we got to take him out. There's something more going on there too, right? They're really going to kill him. That's the idea there, right? Like when Terror says that to him, a bushel of peck and a noose around your neck. You're going to be dead on display tonight, freak. I don't think he's saying that as like a break a leg on the stage kind of thing. I think he really is like, we're going to kill you.
Yes. Oh, 100% agree with you. And again, I 100% agree. That's Nikki right there. He's like, hey, darling, how you doing? That's not, he's like, I'm a little nervous. Oh, that's natural. You and I are going to celebrate after, okay? That is Nikki. She's still in there. She pops up sometimes. Later we see the tap dance killer, but right now that's her. Now where Terror's full all in.
Yeah.
Klaus, you can see just the way he's drawn in that sequence. That's the evil guy. That's not our nice, kind butcher friend. No, that's the embalmer who just did some horrific stuff to the consigliere. I'm like, damn, I love how they're doing this.
I like that the butcher's their evil Q. There's just something about him that totally
it fits. It fits nicely.
What's interesting is the conversation with Bob and Ilya actually led to Ilya having a solid performance in all of this. Not the crowd's not like, mesmerized or anything like that, but he's carrying, his part. It's when the villains come on, because of the fact that they're literally living their role. It really is mesmerizing for the whole crowd. And when things kick up a notch, now Nikki says, wait, in one of those sequences. And why don't you let me take care of him right here and right now? We're now going off script, right?
Oh, 100%. You could see backstage right before that where Ilya's like, hey, this is going great. Hey, get your hands off me, you dirty freak. That's TDK is right there.
Right.
She's not Nikki anymore. And even he's like, whoa. And he's like, should I be shopping for a tombstone? Something going right there. It's the flip, the turn on.
Yeah.
This is 100%. They are all three completely in character, all completely the villains here. There's none of the person actually in them anymore right now. TDK is full on driving this.
So Sal and his clan are there now, ready to make a move. She starts shooting into the audience. Ilya, it looked like she thought Ilya took the bullet for her, when in reality, he was trying to stop her from shooting into the crowd and potentially hurting innocent victims. I really liked that sequence, because what we got clarification of, Ilya's a true hero here. Because he could have been like, Apama's not bulletproof. I'm going to take I'm taking a beeline out of here. Instead, he's like, I cannot let the crowd, including his parents, potentially be victims of this gunplay that's going on. I've got to try to bring this down and de-escalate the situation. I thought his move was really well handled. Now, that is Nikki in that moment talking to him, right?
After he tackles her, Nikki's back in control. It's 100% all Nikki, no more TDK in her.
Yeah, because she really doesn't know what happened.
Right. Because even the cops are like, hey, hands behind your head. They're like, what did I do? What do you mean? They're like... the cops are like, that's Rich. And throughout this, it's all Nikki. She's not going, they think I shot up 3 people. Me. That's the most ridiculous thing you ever heard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, he actually did that. And I do love that she breaks free of the controls, but Terror and Klaus do not. They're still 100% full on in character. They're 100% completely taken over. I don't know what the difference between her and them are, but because you can see as they're taking him to the hospital, they're like, sir, the show's over, you need to stay calm. And he's like, send one mine to the hospital, I sent 10 of yours to the morgue. I'm like, yeah. I love seeing it. And then the creepy look on Klaus's face as he's looking at all the dead bodies, what he's going to do with them. I'm like, oh, this is absolutely brilliant. She's free of the influence, and I did air quotes. But
yeah. I think you and I are in the same boat on that one, because when they reference the fact that, she is the best actor in any show, there is one of those things where do you believe, that she's totally in control of her faculties? I also like that we do get the reveal that Nadine, they called the publisher and they never set anyone. Right. So, who even was she? That mystery I thought was really, really solid. This is a great way to introduce characters. Great 2-issue arc, introduces a lot of content, a lot of story. Even if you left it right here, it's left you with this intriguing foundation. The idea that this then spins off into its own series, Tap Dance Killer, is just incredibly interesting to me. So I'd like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. I want to say something, though. Skype is being eliminated by Microsoft, and they're pushing everyone over to Teams. What I'm going to do in that process is kind of figure out what a show voicemail line looks like for us going forward. I always put that in our show notes, and which is readily available on our website as well. So please keep an eye out on what that option is going to look like moving forward, because we love having you have an option if you want to send us something audio. You can always send us audio files to ragingbullets@gmail.com. Always works. We've had listeners over the years send us audio files that way. So feel free to do that, or send us your email comments as well at ragingbullets@gmail.com. That will remain as is. And you can always contact us as a part of our Facebook group. And we always post all of our episodes up there and love to get your feedback on that social media platform. RagingBullets.com is, of course, our show website where you will get all the information on the newest released episodes. That feeds into X/Twitter and our Facebook fan page. And so there's lots of different ways to find out what's going on with the podcast. The About Us section is, of course, where you can connect with us on personal social media and gaming platforms. And bi-weekly, I'm on Is It Jaws, which is a film review podcast. Host Paul Spataro, and I host that every other week. And if you're into film reviews, we actually use the Jaws 1 through 4 movies as a review scale. So it's really fun. We have a rotating cast of just great guests and great conversation around film over there if you're into that. So please consider joining us for that. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segalin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Mr. Terrific, Year 1, Issue 1 of 6, 50% off $199. Supergirl, new ongoing series, Issue 1, 50% off $199. And Superman Unlimited, new ongoing series, Issue number 1, 50% off only $249. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, DC's finest. Plastic Man, The Origin of Plastic Man, trade paperback, $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. Fantastic Four Epic Collection, trade paperback, volume 11, For No More, $49.99 regularly, 46% off, only $26.99. Gunsmith Cats, Omnibus graphic novel, volume 1, $29.99 regularly, 46% off, only $16.19. Superman, Space Age trade paperback, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. And last but not least, the Spectacular Spider-Man trade paperback volume 2, Elementary. This is $15.99 regularly, 46% off, only $8.63. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, we're going to be back with part 2 of this as we start taking a look at the miniseries Tap Dance Killer that spun out of the 2 issues we talked about this episode. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Jim are back again, talking comic books with all their friends.
They'll spoil a story and break it down. These 2 guys talking comics are the best around. Raging Bullets,
The podcast show.
Raging Bullets,
The podcast show.